For 1,000 years, her name was twisted, not by the Norse, but by the people who rewrote their world. What you know about hell did not come from the sources. It came from the interpretations layered on top of them. If you stay with this story, you will see how far the real hell is from the version you were given. Hell was never the monster you were taught to fear. Her name was not created to punish. Her realm was not built for fire or torment. And the dead she held were not condemned to anything. Her truth was older, quieter, and far more human. She was a goddess with authority, not a creature of terror. She ruled because someone needed to care for the people who did not die in glory, the people whose stories were not written in battle songs. But that truth did not survive untouched. Over centuries, her name shifted, her meaning blurred. Later storytellers did not just misunderstand her. They reshaped her to fit a world that wanted her gone. Not because the Norse believed she was cruel, but because later writers understood the world through a different lens. This is the story buried beneath 1,000 years of retellings. This is the part that slipped underneath later interpretations. What survived in manuscripts survived by accident, not by permission. The real hell lived behind the edits, behind the comparisons, behind the expectations of the people recording her story. And if you follow those older lines back, you find a goddess nothing like the image most people know today. This part of her story was never meant to survive, and yet it did. If you want the full truth behind the old gods restored with accuracy, subscribe so you never miss the next chapter. In the earliest texts, hell is not fire. She is not chaos. She is not wrath. She is structure. She is described as calm, pale, solemn, and immovable. A figure who received the dead, not hunted them. A goddess whose hall stood in the far reaches of the world, not as a prison, but as an extension of life's final threshold. There is no mention of her judging anyone, no list of sins, no punishments waiting for the ordinary dead. Her realm was simply the destination for most people, not for criminals, not for the wicked, just people, farmers, mothers, children, craftsmen, the elderly, the sick, anyone who did not die with a sword in hand. None of this resembles the fire-filled hell people later attached to her name. Hell's role was not to condemn them. Her role was to keep the boundary between the living and the dead intact. That was her purpose, not torment, stewardship. To the Norse, the afterlife was a landscape, a system, a set of destinations shaped by circumstance, not morality. Valhalla for warriors chosen by Odin, Folkvanger for those chosen by Freya, Ran's Hall for those lost at sea, Helgafell for the ancestral gentle dead, and Hell's Domain for the majority of all others. The Norse did not imagine a single afterlife. They imagined a network, and hell was at the center of that network, the largest realm of all. Nothing in the original sources suggests she ruled through fear. Instead, her domain was about organization, continuity, and the natural end of life. A world with many afterlives was harder to control than a world with only one. Death was not a threat, it was an arrival. This was the part of their belief system later writers could not absorb. Most people do not know who hell actually held. The sagas were written in a world shaped by warriors. Most lives were not shaped by battle. Children who died young, mothers lost in childbirth, the elderly who passed quietly, the ill who faded slowly, the everyday people who kept the society alive. These were hell's dead. She held the ones whose stories were not loud, but no less important. Her realm in the Norse afterlife was not dark punishment. It was where most human lives ended. Not with shame, not with divine anger, with placement. Hell is one of the few beings in the mythology entrusted with an entire cosmic function. She controlled the motion of spirits. She maintained the separation between worlds. She protected the living from the restless dead and the dead from the grasp of the living. In the myth of Baldur's death, she is not cruel. She is not vengeful. She follows her rules precisely and without malice. Her response to the gods is measured, structured, almost bureaucratic. She does not wage war. She does not lash out. She simply upholds the boundaries she was assigned. Hell was one of the few beings the gods could not overrule. This is not the behavior of a demon. It is the behavior of a sovereign. This was the part of her power later interpreters did not know how to explain. So what changed? Hell's name sounds like hell, and when later Christians wrote about the Norse world, they filtered everything through their own worldview. A female ruler of the dead did not fit their expectations. A neutral afterlife did not fit their theology. A cosmology without punishment undermined the moral structure they were teaching. To later writers, a neutral afterlife threatened the authority they depended on. So hell became a symbol, and symbols are easy to reshape. Fire was added, Sin was inferred, punishment was projected, judgment was invented. Over time, these misunderstandings stacked on top of one another until the goddess became the place, and the place became the threat. Hel's name survived, but her meaning did not. Interpretation changed her, not the sources. Fear spreads more easily than nuance, and when cultures collide, the dominant one rewrites the quieter. The Norse afterlife system was too complex to fit into a binary heaven-hell framework. So one realm, Hell's, became the easiest catch-all to convert. A calm goddess turned into a warning. A neutral realm turned into a punishment. A cosmic steward became a demonized figure in retellings. This was not an organic evolution. It was a reinterpretation shaped by pressure, translation, and cultural expectation. Hell became a warning, not because she changed, but because the world around her demanded it. The original Hell never condemned anyone. The later Hell condemned everyone. Despite the distortions, she never vanished from the manuscripts. Hell still rules. Hell still receives the dead. Hell still speaks with authority. Hell still controls the threshold between worlds. Even when later writers reshaped her, they could not erase the core of her character. Calm, sovereign, necessary. Even distorted, she remained impossible to erase. She stands at the center of the Norse worldview, not pushed to its margins. Her presence in the mythology remains vast, even if her reputation does not. When you remove the later fear, the imported fire, the moral weight placed on her name, you find something far older. A goddess of completion, a ruler of the natural dead, a force that ensured the world remained in balance, a presence that kept the living and the dead in their rightful places. Hell was not a monster, she was not an enemy, she was the final keeper of human stories. If you stand with the original Norse sources, subscribe and stay with this work. What remains of Hel today is not fear, but memory. And the fact that her name survived 1,000 years of retelling means her role can still be understood today, not as a shadow of something sinister, but as a reflection of a world where death was not a threat, only a transition. Stories survive because someone chooses to remember. Subscribe and remember with us, because this is only the beginning of what they left behind.